What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am bringing you my South of Midnight review, going over this brand new game from Compulsion Games and Xbox Game Studios, an Xbox first party game that recently released just a few weeks ago. And I have a lot to say about this game, just recently finished it. And I just want to dive straight in and give you my thoughts, the good and the bad, about South of Midnight. So without further ado, let's dive in. So I have a lot of different parts of the game that I want to jump into and talk about. But first, let's talk about the art style and the visuals with South of Midnight, because I feel like that might be what sticks out first when you look at this game. When we first saw this game a couple years ago, I don't even remember what year it was, the first thing that kind of stood out was this stop motion style of cutscenes and how the characters move around. And a lot of people, it seems like it's kind of 50-50, where some people are put off by that, some people don't mind it, or they really enjoy it. They think it's a very cool and unique thing that you don't really see a whole lot in games. It kind of reminisces something like a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I've never seen, but I've seen how that movie uses the stop motion to its advantage. And for me, it works in this game. It really does give it a unique style that I haven't really seen. I couldn't think off the top of my head of another game that kind of uses this style, stop motion style, to do its cutscenes. You don't see it in game when you're playing around, you're traversing, doing combat, all of that. At least to me, I didn't see anything. It all felt smooth. But that's also something you can turn off, and accessibility features in this game are very good, allowing you to, if you don't like the stop motion feature, turn it off and it's not there. So I think it might be in gameplay and stuff like that, but it's in cutscenes for sure. And I didn't mind it at all. Like I said, I think it gave it a very cool and unique sense of style that I don't see a whole lot in other games. And also, the game's visuals. This game is stunning. There's so many different times in this game where I was just sitting there and I was like, wow, this game is just knocking it out of the park with the art style and the way that the setting and environments, which we'll talk about more in depth in a second, really lend to the way that this game looks. It looks really, really good, and I thought that it was one of the high points of this game. The art style and the visuals, both to me, were some of the best parts of South of Midnight. I just briefly talked about the setting in the world a second ago, but now let's dive into that and talk about the Deep South, which is what the setting is for this game. You could kind of tell when we saw trailers, we were seeing gameplay, when this game was leading up to releasing, that yeah, they were knocking it out of the park really already, just based on seeing the trailers and what little bit of gameplay that we saw. And yeah, they knocked it out of the park. I enjoyed being in this setting and this world a lot when playing South of Midnight. All the different environments and how this game handles the different settings, and also the ambiance. Hearing all of these animals and insects, crickets, all of this ambiance that you would expect to hear when you're in the Deep South, you hear when you're just walking around exploring in this game, playing through the game. It is always there, and it just takes you and transports you to that setting, and it does such a great job of doing that, putting you in that spot, in that position. And also the world, not just talking about the Deep South, but how this game does the lore. And I'll talk about some of the bad things and some of the not so great things that I really thought about, story and stuff like that a little bit later. But in terms of the lore and the world, I was really interested and intrigued to learn as much as I could and learn more about what Compulsion was creating and did create. I would definitely be open to a sequel in this world with what they've created. And yeah, I mean, the world and the lore, along with the setting, I think can definitely be explored more. And I am excited to see where they go with it, if they maybe go down the route of doing a sequel, or who knows. I think games should definitely look more into using this type of setting and seeing what they can do with it. I remember like one of the campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2, like the swamp campaign. That's one of the really only times I can remember a game using this Deep South kind of feel to its advantage. And maybe there's more out there. That's just the one I can think of off the top of my head. But really enjoyed the setting and the world and the lore in South of Midnight as well. Let's get into what is my favorite part of South of Midnight, and that is the soundtrack. It is fantastic. There is so much emphasis, a lot more than I thought, in this game on the music. And as a music lover, I try to branch out as much as I can and listen to as many different genres and just kind of experiment and try to see what I do and don't like. This game, with its soundtrack, it's the best part of this game. It is so good. It's hard for me to explain. If I end up doing some kind of award show type thing where I kind of make categories at the end of the year and just do something fun like that, as of right now, it's going to be hard for me to see and hear a soundtrack that does a better job than South of Midnight. I would love to be proven wrong, but this soundtrack is fantastic. Looking into the composer of this game, and I'm going to butcher his name probably, it's Olivier Deriviere. I probably screwed that up, but I want to give him a lot of credit, because when I looked into, and well, really after I've kind of started to hear what kind of music was in this game, I was like, okay, who is doing this? Who is the main guy, the leader that is composing all this music? I look into what he's done before, and he did the Plague Tale games, which also had fantastic music, and he also did Dying Light 2. But this, I remember Plague Tale having very good music, but man, the style that you can feel through the music and the amount of genres that he is able to hit. It's not just, folk music. You get into some blues and some jazz and even some rock music. It's hard for me to explain how good it is. I might just have to let you listen to a bit of a snippet of a song that I just kind of pick out.
Oh, Molly, Molly, keep your hands away. Hold and crush you is the game she plays. Molly, Molly, all in white. Her grip is fast and much too tight.
And you're also hearing the soundtrack in the background of this video. I like to try to do that with all the reviews that I do. Go listen to the soundtrack. Even if you don't plan on playing this game, if it doesn't seem like your type of thing, you gotta listen to the soundtrack. I would go highly recommend listening to the soundtrack. The way that it's able to go alongside what's happening in the game and the story, and these tracks are tailored to certain parts of the game and story beats. It is just something that I really don't see a whole lot when it comes to games and soundtracks that have spoken lyrics. I feel like I don't really see or hear a lot of games. Usually it's just instrumentals, and there are instrumentals in this game obviously, but you have those story beat tracks that have lyrics that go alongside with what's going on, and those also hit very, very different in this game. I love the soundtrack. It's the best part of this game to me. Like I said, if you're gonna miss out on this game, if you're gonna skip it, doesn't seem like your type of thing, obviously it's perfectly fine, but go listen to the soundtrack. It is well worth the listen. So far throughout this review, I know it sounds like I really, really enjoy this game, and it's one of my favorite games of the year I've played so far, and that's kind of how I've wanted to frame this review. I was thinking about how I want to do it, because it's not all good. There is some bad, there is some not great, and we'll kind of get into that now. I just decided to push those three things to the forefront and talk about the positives, and now we'll get into the more neutral / negatives, and we'll talk about the combat, exploration, and progression in this game, because it's really not all that great. When you're getting into South of Midnight, just beware that this is not your 20, 30, 40 hour RPG that has all of this crazy progression and open worlds and kind of go do whatever you want. This is a linear game. It follows a path. There is exploration in terms of going and kind of exploring around and finding the, I guess, currency you use to upgrade, but it's all linear. And honestly, this type of game is a breath of fresh air just based on what's recently come out. A lot of longer games back to back to back does get tiring, so having this shorter, more condensed, focused experience is very nice. We'll talk about the progression first. How you progress in this game, there's a very small skill tree that you can upgrade using, I think they're called floofs. I could be wrong on what they're called off the top of my head, but basically you get these floofs from combat encounters and exploring these areas and levels that you have off the beaten path. Usually you see a path that you go down, and then you see another path, and you're like, okay, I'm supposed to go there, but I'm gonna go over here because there's definitely going to be some kind of upgrade thing over there in the form of these little orbs that you can pick up, and you'll usually get 5, 10, maybe 20 floofs. And there's also these little pieces of metal, these tins that you can just use your push ability to flip over, and you also get some from that. I feel like that could be expanded on a little bit more down the line, I hope, if a sequel is being made or something like that. Maybe see a bit more there. I know, like I said, it's hard to try and ask for more when this game is supposed to be this short, condensed experience, but I would kind of want more from that front. It's not bad or anything like that. Progression is very basic. You get these upgrades. You have 4 abilities and also a main general tree that has, I think, maybe 10 skills in it, and each of the 4 abilities have 3 skills in them as well. So as you progress through the story, you can end up unlocking all of these skills. So it gives you something to progress, so that is good. It's just very basic. It gets the job done. It's not very, revolutionizing or anything like that, but it's not supposed to be. It's not, the end of the world, the fact that it's very basic. I think it gets the job done, and it could be expanded on a little bit more, but for what it is, it's solid. It's fine. Combat is a part of this game that I am not so high on. Seeing gameplay of it, pre-release, when trailers were coming out and they were showing off gameplay, it looked fine. It didn't look like anything crazy, and it isn't. It really, honestly, as when you start, you can kind of feel, okay, you got your dodge, your perfect dodge, your attack, you have a jump attack, all your basic standard modern gameplay combat mechanics. And as the game goes on, you get introduced to a couple more enemy types. There's a decent amount of enemy variety, but not enough to really send it over the top. At the end of the game, and as the game went on, I honestly felt that it was just super tedious, because every time, and it wasn't like this kind of, oh, sometimes you'd get surprised by a combat encounter. There were at least every chapter, 3 to 4 minimum combat encounters that you'll face, and it's in this arena that you'll walk into. So it's always kind of streamlined in terms of when you're going to fight, and you kind of know how you're going to fight. The abilities are just kind of whatever. You have your push and your pull and your weave, which makes them kind of sit in place for a second. They're kind of wrapped up. And then you also have Crouton, who is your little kind of companion throughout the game who can possess enemies. That ability is pretty cool, being able to use the enemies against themselves. But overall, combat, not really that great. It just got really tedious, and I almost turned off the combat, or at least had the option to skip the combat sequences, because I really wasn't missing a whole lot. If you were to go through this game and not do a single bit of combat, I mean, you wouldn't really be missing anything, because they're just kind of there. There's nothing. The plot and story part of it is you're clearing stigma, which we'll get into in the story part of the video. But just based on the combat and focusing on that, it just doesn't feel very important. It doesn't feel like, I'm really experiencing this great thing that, most games you want to enjoy the combat and have fun with it and want to keep doing that. But in this game, for me, it's not that great. It really kind of holds the game back, and I think it almost makes me wonder what would happen in this game if they just took the combat out and put a lot more into the story and the exploring and the world. Combat's not great in this game. Progression is fine. It gets the job done. Exploration also the same way. Just kind of gets the job done. So combat, exploration, and progression goes from kind of okay to not that great. The last thing that we'll dive into and talk about is the story, and I won't have any spoilers in this review. I just want to talk about the story at just a basic glance at it, talk about what it does well and what it doesn't do so well. And first we'll dive into just the main plot. You play as Hazel. She is a weaver, and the basic plot premise of this game is that there is a hurricane that occurs, and while Hazel is helping the neighbors out, making sure they're okay, her mom is left in the house and she gets swept away in the hurricane. And the whole premise of the game is to find your mom, find Lacey, and make sure that she's safe. And I remember when we saw this game at the Developer Direct back in January, that plot premise I was not a fan of. I was really hoping that it just wasn't that. And it's not, but it is most of what this plot is just going to find your mom, and the journey that you take to get there. But just for me, it's not that great of a plot premise, because the whole time I'm like, really, we're doing all this? All of this is happening because she gets swept away in a hurricane. To me, it didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. It didn't feel like the right kind of motivation for how this story goes. But you'll run into a lot of different characters in this game. Like we've seen the Catfish. He's a great character. The voice acting in this game is phenomenal. That's also something I didn't really touch on, but voice acting is very, very good from all the characters involved. And the way that conversations happen between characters, the dialogue just feels very genuine, and you can just kind of tell, like, this is how people actually talk to each other, and it's not like super robotic or like kind of plain basic dialogue. It can get like that, but there are some moments where the dialogue really takes front stage and shines.
How am I supposed to do that?
Well, it's like this, see? Our world is made of strands all wove together. Now, when something terrible or unnatural happens to a creature, the strands get all knotted. Now, this here tree went through some tribulations. Must have left its knots all over the place. All you gotta do is use your magic bottle and...
Wait. I don't have a magic bottle.
No?
No.
Well, there's an old bottle tree over this way. The sun's always glinting in my eyes from it. You could probably find one there.
Okay, so I get the magic bottle and then...
Just get it. I'll tell you the rest after. But hurry. Some folks think I'm delicious fried up with grits. It's healthy for a fish to be in a tree. That's Two-Toed Tom. Big gator. I gotta drop you off.
After I got you out of that tree, you said you helped me find my mama.
I ain't of a disposition to big gator snacks.
Well, me neither.
If we're gonna go on, we gotta get rid of him.
I'm all ears.
There's a church up a ways with a big bell. Go on and ring it.
You want to make him come running?
Tom can't abide the sound of bells. Some church once tried to dynamite him, and he didn't take that too kindly. If you ring that bell, he might skedaddle.
You better not skedaddle.
Go on now, scoot. I'll pick you up yonder after to go find your mom.
Trifling ass mudcat.
Hey, I heard that.
Ugh. I need a shower so bad. I am covered in doo-doo water.
Getting back to the story though, so once that happens, you go on your journey, you meet all these characters, and that part of the story with Hazel and trying to find her mom wasn't a fan of. But when you go throughout this story and the journey that you take, you run into these almost kind of tales that have been running around the Deep South, like the tale of Benji or Two-Toed Tom or Huggin' Molly, all these really cool stories, and you actually kind of take a page out of like a Psychonauts, and you dive into how these creatures, or you know what can be seen as monsters, became how they are, their past and the troubles and the struggles that they've gone through. And it kind of gives a very good story beat off and a theme of, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. Nothing is really as it seems. That kind of theme where, you know, you see someone like, let's say, a Huggin' Molly, and you're like, wow, you know, how, you know, she's a terrible person, she's doing terrible things. Who would ever do something like this? And then you dive into why she's doing what she's doing, or how she got there, her past. And with context, a lot of this can be better understood from the outside perspective. I think that's a really cool theme to dive into. Psychonauts kind of did that in a different way, and I think I like how this game did it. And some of the stories that you hear, it's very basic storytelling, not a whole lot is given, but even then, with the basic storytelling, some of these stories, like the first one that you experience, they can hit. And I was surprised by that with some of these shorter tales and stories that we were seeing throughout the journey of the main story. I was enjoying more than the main story. That doesn't go for all of them. I don't think that they all hit like that, but I do like the premise and how the game was going about it. It just, at some points didn't really feel all that rewarding like I feel like it could have been. So main story, not a huge fan of. The ending was very abrupt, I'll just say that. I don't think this game wrapped up in a very great way. I think, extended out a little bit more. This game is not too long. I think How Long to Beat probably has it about 8 or 9 hours. It took me a little bit longer than that, but add a couple more chapters in there, flesh these characters out, let's explore this world a little bit more. I think this would be a lot better. So overall story, for the most part, not a fan of. I was not a fan of how this story was really told. There were some parts that I enjoyed, but for the most part, I was just kind of sitting there underwhelmed for most of it. And really what carried me through this game was those first three things that I talked about. The art style, the setting in the world, and the soundtrack. The story's there, it gets the job done, but you don't really want that from this type of game. You want a lot more, and I just didn't get that out of South of Midnight. So after all of that being said, what is my verdict on South of Midnight? I've been thinking about how I want to do a verdict in these reviews. I don't want to give a review score because I know that's the very standard way of going about it, is let's give this game a 9 or let's give it a 6. But I don't really want that to be the way that I do it. I want to recommend this game to you if I feel like it's worth it. So right now, South of Midnight is $40 base. It takes about 8 to 9 hours to finish. It took me a little bit longer, but around that ballpark, 8, 9, 10 hours to finish. And it's also on Xbox Game Pass, which is how I played this game. Would I recommend South of Midnight? For $40, if you are going to buy this game, I would wait until it goes on a sale. Not like a deep sale, but if you can catch it for maybe a $30, maybe even down to like a $25-ish dollars, I think you're getting a very good experience. I think if you're looking to experience all that 2025 and gaming has to offer and you want to try to get the best out of it, I think if you can get this game on a sale, it's worth experiencing. The soundtrack and all the things that I said that are very good about this game, I would definitely recommend experiencing for that price. $40 to me, I wouldn't do that, but there's also Game Pass. That's how I played it, and yes, I would recommend it. If it's on Game Pass and you have Game Pass and you want to try this game, go for it. I think it's definitely worth it. I think it's worth getting Game Pass for, because obviously you get South of Midnight, but then a lot of other games, and you get it at $20. But if you're just looking at, okay, do I want to buy this game? Should I buy this game for $40? I would recommend waiting until it goes on a sale of some sort. Short sale, like I said, maybe $30. I would do this game at $30. $40, I'm not sure about. So I would recommend it if you can get it on a sale. That's going to be it for the video. That was my South of Midnight review. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think about South of Midnight down in the comments. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Neutral about it? What do you guys think about South of Midnight? Let's go down in the comments. Let's talk about games. And also let me know any kind of feedback, good or bad, about this style of review, how you would want to see this done in the future, because there's a lot of games coming out, so I'm hoping to be putting out a lot more reviews. So that is going to be it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I'll talk to you later.